Hey guys, Ryan Martian here, and before I even get into what I'm going to be discussing today, I want to say there are major spoilers ahead right from the very beginning. I tried to be a little vague with the title of this video because it would have been a huge spoiler in and of itself. There are also spoilers for A New Hope, since I will briefly touch on that film as well for comparison. Therefore, you have been warned. Big time. What I'm going to discuss is specifically Rey's use of the Force in Star Wars: The Force Awakens. It's been met with some harsh criticism by a large part of the audience ever since Episode 7 was released. Many people found it absurd that Rey was able to learn the ways of the Force and use it as quickly as she did without any training whatsoever. For those of you that watched my In Defense of Starkiller Vase video, number 1, thank you so much for checking it out. This will be another in that same series where I attempt to defend the filmmakers and the other side of the argument. Also, if you disagree with my opinion, that is absolutely fine and I welcome it. This is just one Martian's opinion, and my intention is simply to open a dialogue in order to explain maybe why. There's nothing really to complain about. Before we get into the bulk of my defense, it's important that I quickly touch on the scene where Rey comes in contact with Luke and Anakin's lightsaber in the basement of Maz Kanata's cantina. A lot happens during that flashback sequence, both visually and orally, as we see and hear quick glimpses of Luke and Anakin's pasts along with Rey's. In fact, there are entire videos on YouTube dedicated to dissecting every single frame of this scene. Most importantly though, we didn't see and hear everything that occurs. Rey is the recipient, and at this point, she is the only one who saw and felt everything. The flashback closes with Obi-Wan's words, "Rey, these are your first steps." Please keep these details in mind throughout the rest of this defense. From what I've discerned, the criticism of Rey's use of the Force focuses on 3 specific scenes and sequences for the most part, and how she appears to harness it easier and quicker as the film progresses with no training at all. Again, that we know of. The first of which occurs during and after Kylo Ren's interrogation of Rey. Earlier in the film, we see Poe, as much as he tries to struggle, allow Kylo to read his mind in order to secure the location of the map to find Luke Skywalker. He obviously doesn't give in right away, but it's important to note that he eventually does relinquish. Kylo's use of the Force is simply too powerful for Poe to resist. Now, when Kylo first interrogates Rey, he is able to pick up some basic feelings and vague mental pictures from her. She is lonely and desperate to sleep at night. He sees an ocean, an island, and Han Solo. After this, she almost warns Kylo to get out of my head. At this point, both Kylo and Rey seem to be struggling with each other. It's no longer a one-sided interrogation, and in fact, Rey now appears to be the one in control, with Kylo backing away. She tells Kylo that he is afraid that he will never be as strong as Darth Vader. As soon as she says this, Kylo is the one who relinquishes, and he quickly leaves to report her power to Snoke. This was her first step. Back in the interrogation room, Rey attempts to use Force suggestion on the stormtrooper guarding her, saying, "You will remove these restraints and leave the cell with the door open." It doesn't work the first time or even the second time. Finally, she composes herself a bit, and after the third attempt, it works. She uses it one more time to tell him to drop his weapon, which serves 2 purposes. As a comedic beat for the audience, but also, and more importantly, in regards to Rey gaining more confidence in her abilities. This was her second step. Let's jump ahead a bit to the confrontation in the snowy forest. Kylo uses Force push on Rey, temporarily knocking her out, and quickly defeats Finn in a lightsaber duel. During the duel, Rey can see her friend, via some nice camera work by JJ, struggling with Kylo. As Kylo attempts to retrieve Luke and Anakin's lightsaber from the snow using the Force, he appears to struggle mightily. You can see the frustration on his face. A few seconds later, the lightsaber comes flying out of the snow, right past Kylo's face and into Rey's hands. JJ brilliantly reuses the musical cue Burning Homestead from A New Hope for this moment. And it's not just used for the sake of nostalgia. It's the scene when Luke sees his dead aunt and uncle burning right in front of him. Luke realizes he has nothing left on Tatooine, and finally decides to follow his destiny with Obi-Wan. This was Luke's first step. As Rey grips the lightsaber after retrieving it from the snow, she is also realizing her destiny. This is very, very important, and I think a lot of people have missed this connection. I can't even describe the amount of goosebumps and feelings that soared through my body the first time I saw this scene on opening night. I almost cried because the connection was damn near perfect in my opinion. Finally, this was Rey's third step. Now, let's look at Luke's journey with the Force in Episode 4 in order to compare it to Rey's in Episode 7. Within the entire span of A New Hope, Luke receives what I'm guessing to be maybe a few hours of training in the ways of the Force from Obi-Wan while on the Millennium Falcon. This serves as his second step. At the climactic end of A New Hope, Luke is piloting a ship he has never flown before and uses the Force to basically blind fire a torpedo into the hole the size of a mailbox simply because the ghost voice of a dead man he met only a day or so ago told him to. Besides his very brief training earlier, this is also the very first time he ever uses the Force, and he destroys an entire space station as a result. That's a pretty gigantic third step. Do you guys see where I'm going with this? The only difference between Rey's lack of training, which keep in mind, we still don't know if she was in fact never trained before, and Luke's actual training was only a few hours at the most. Why is Rey's progression so unbelievable, while Luke's is almost universally accepted as completely plausible? Rey's use of the Force makes logical and sound progression throughout the film. In comparison, Luke's first two steps, if you even want to call them that, are very minuscule, and then all of a sudden, he can control the path of two torpedoes flying through space, and it's not even questioned? And that giant staircase of stone steps that Rey climbs at the very end of Episode 7, the steps she uses to finally find Luke Skywalker, it looks like her training is in fact only just beginning, and her first steps, as Obi-Wan wisely called them, have come to a close. Considering what she accomplished in Episode 7, with little to possibly no training at all, the First Order should be very, very scared. Rey already seems to be more focused and naturally talented than Luke at the end of Episode 4. As always guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like or subscribe. Thanks again.